Today we are going to make a zipper pouch that is perfect for carrying sneakers or shoes, or actually anything else. So this zipper pouch will fit tennis shoes and other types of shoes. I like to use it if I'm going to the beach. I can keep my beach shoes in this bag and they won't get all sandy in my car. I also have one that I use for the barn so that I can put my muddy shoes in there and it won't get mud all over. So let's get sewing. To get started, make sure that your iron is on a medium heat because our fabrics are cotton, but the zipper that we're going to be using is polyester. So go ahead and iron out any of the creases in your fabrics that you would like to iron flat. And then the first pieces that we are going to work with are the two long skinny pieces. These are going to go on both sides of your zipper. So place the zipper side down on the right side of the fabric like I'm doing here, and line that zipper up with the top edge of the long edge of this fabric. You're going to want to use quite a few pins that'll hold it together, and I like to try and pin just through one zipper tape because that will hold it together and in place more. But if you can't get it to go through one side of the zipper tape, you can pin down on one side, go under the zipper teeth, and come back up on the other side. Now, once we're done with this, we're going to go ahead and sew it down along the edge of the fabric. You can use a zipper foot if you like, but with these types of nylon coil zippers, I sometimes find it easier to just use a normal presser foot and make sure that I'm sewing along the edge of the zipper teeth. So make sure that you're not going across the zipper teeth. Reverse stitch when you start, and then as we get towards the end here, you're not going to be able to sew over the zipper pull. So you're going to stop before your presser foot gets to the zipper pull itself. And then you will just make sure that your needle is in the down position, and then pick up your presser foot and lift up the zipper and kind of unzip it around the presser foot and needle. If you have any pins that are in the way, make sure to take those out. I forgot to take out a pin here, and that's why I'm struggling, but there we go, and now it'll just go. Now you can have just one zipper tape that you're sewing along and go all the way back to the edge here, and then reverse stitch and you're done. Now we are going to snip our tails of thread, take out the pins, and then we are going to iron this flat. Now remember, the zipper itself is polyester, so you don't want to melt that. I'm grabbing my ironing surface here, and we're going to make sure that we press the raw edges away from the zipper. So like I'm showing right here. I like to start pressing from the wrong side, and then I'm going to flip it over and press it the rest of the way from the right side. Now, if you want to finish this off with some top stitching, you can also go and top stitch this down right along the crease. What that will do is help hold those raw edges out away from the zipper with use. Now we are going to do the same thing with the other side of the zipper and the other piece of the strip fabric. If your fabric is directional, meaning there's a top and a bottom, make sure that you put this on the right way, and that's why I just laid this out with both pieces right side up before I pinned this, just to double check that I was doing it the right way. Now, I'm kind of pinning this upside down here, but you can pin it right side up if you would prefer, like with the zipper on the top. But we're just going to pin along here like we did the first one. And this time though, we're going to leave the zipper unzipped a little bit. So I'm going to zip it up here to pin it easier. But up here you want to make sure that your pin only goes through the one side of the zipper tape, because we are going to unzip this when we get to the sewing machine in order to start. So we'll do kind of a reversed, like at the last time we ended on the open zipper. This time we're going to start. So I'm pulling the other side of the zipper away. I'm going to start sewing here. And then once we get close to the zipper pull, we will stop, make sure that the needle is in the down position, and pick up the presser foot, just like we did on the other side, but this time we're going to reach in and zip it closed instead of open the zipper. Sometimes you need to finagle it around that needle a little bit, and then we'll just keep going. Now, once the threads are trimmed and the pins pulled out here, we're going to open this and press it flat. So this time we are going to make sure that this side is pressed away from the zipper as well. And since it's a bigger piece, it's easier to just start from the front and go ahead and press this open. Again, this would be another seam that you could top stitch along if you wanted to. Next, we are going to sew little end caps on the end of the zipper. So we're going to need the little rectangles that are a pair, and we're going to pin these right sides together on both ends here. When you pin on the side with the opening where the zipper opens, so where the zipper pull is right now, we're going to leave it closed for a second while we pin on the outside, but then we will need to open this zipper because we won't be able to sew over the zipper pull. So once I get these two pins put in, I'm just going to open this zipper a little bit. And then I'm going to put a couple more pins in to hold those two halves of the zipper in place. So when I flip this over here, you can see that my pins go through both zipper tapes so that they will stay folded over and in place. And we're just going to sew along here. Now for the rest of our seams, we do have a 1/2 inch seam allowance. As you go over the end of the zipper tape, go ahead and go slow. There are some pieces in there that your sewing machine could have a hard time going over. So it's best to be cautious rather than have a sewing machine accident. So even if you want to slow down and not use your foot pedal, but just use the knob on the side of your sewing machine, and you can move that needle by hand over those spots. Once we have made it over that and pulled out the pins, we need to iron these seam allowances as well. We're going to press these away from the zipper too, and these are much easier to get pressed over. If you want to top stitch, or if you are top stitching your project, this would be another seam that you could top stitch. The point of top stitching is just to keep those raw edges away from getting caught in the zipper. Now we're going to set this aside for a second, and we're going to work with this large piece in a moment, but first the smaller rectangle piece is what we're going to do first. That's our handle. which will actually be attached to the other rectangle piece that I just pulled out. But we're going to fold this hot dog style with the right sides of the fabric together and pin this lining up the long edges. Now we're going to sew this handle inside out and then turn it right side out really easily. So once you get this pinned, you're going to sew along one short edge and the long edge. Leave the other short edge open. Now definitely make sure to reverse stitch here, as there will be some pressure along the short seam when we go and turn this right side out. So we want to make sure that that's a strong seam with the reinforcement of the back stitch. We're also going to back stitch at the edge here so it doesn't unravel as we turn this right side out. Now go ahead and clip your threads, take out your pins, and then we're going to use this kind of a marker to turn this right side out. Clip the edge corners here first though. Just make sure you don't cut along the stitching. You want to stay on the outside of the stitching. Now you can start pushing this inside with your thumbs, and then I usually stand the pen on the table so that I can just push down. It takes a little bit to get this started, but once you get it started over the cap of this pen, it will work pretty well. This is a good way to turn a tube right side out. If you don't have a special tube turner tool, you can just use a pen or a pencil or something like that. If you're having too hard of a time, go back and trim your seam allowance a little shorter. That will make it easier to turn right side out because there won't be as much bulk that needs to fit into the small tube. Now once you get this right side out, you can use something a little bit pokier to carefully push up into the edge here and poke out the two corners of the end that we sewed. Now if you're using sharp scissors, be really careful because you don't want to poke a hole, so just be careful. What would work better than scissors would be a sharpened pencil or even a somewhat dull pencil. I just didn't have any, so I grabbed my scissors and was using that. Once you get that poked out, we are going to iron it flat. Make sure that the seam is pulled out to one side so that the whole thing isn't twisting. And then once you get to the end, first we're gonna make sure that it's lying flat because we want it to stay really nice and flat. Then once you get to the end, trim off any threads that might be sticking out and then turn in about 1/2 inch of this raw edge. You're basically just going to be pushing this back into the tube a little bit so that the raw ends are not sticking out. We don't want those to unravel and fall apart on us in the future. So push those in a little bit, and then once you kind of get it situated so that it can lie flat, we will put it back down on the pressing surface and iron it flat. Now we are ready to attach this to the last rectangular piece in your kit. This is going to go along the center line of this. So we're going to fold the big one hot dog style again and use our iron to crease that. That's an easy way to keep that guideline for where we're going to put this handle. Now you want to place each end of the handle about 2.5 inches in from the short edge, but along the center crease. So 2.5 inches in from the short edge along the center crease. go ahead and pin these in place, and then we're going to top stitch them down. So if you would like, you can use a zigzag stitch at this point. That will reinforce your stitch a little bit and make it a little bit more strong. Or you can use a straight stitch and make an X shape over the end of the handle here. However, the shoes that I'm going to be putting in mine aren't that crazy heavy, so I'm just going to reverse stitch a few times and go straight across the end here. So I'm just going forward, backwards, forward, backwards. And if you go all the way from one end to the other that way, it should be strong enough to hold pretty much anything that you could put in there. No need to get super fancy, but it will still be strong enough and work super well. Now, once we get all the threads trimmed on here, which is quite a piece of work on this piece, we're going to set it aside for a second, and we're going to grab the piece with the zipper in it again. Now we're also going to grab the pair of arch-shaped pieces, and we're going to pin right sides together, the arch side to the long edge of one side of the zipper piece. Now you're going to want to make sure that you pin this pretty well and that it matches up on both ends. So I'm actually going to pin both ends here first, and then as I pin around the top, everything will just work out to be even. Once this is pinned, we're going to go ahead and sew around here. Be careful so that you don't get any folds or wrinkles that you sew in place. The easiest way to do this is make sure that the piece with the zipper is on top and your flat piece that you didn't have to curve to pin, that flat one that has a curve, is underneath. That way, all the wrinkles are going to be on the zipper piece, so you can watch them as you sew around it. That way you don't accidentally sew over a wrinkle that you couldn't see. It's going to be important to reverse stitch at the beginning and end of this stitch line as well. Once these threads are trimmed and all of the pins pulled out, we are going to do a similar thing with the other side of the long edge of this zipper piece and the other rounded piece. So we're going to grab that. It's going to be a little bit more tricky to pin in place this time, just because we also have that other arched piece sewn in place at this point, but it should be pretty straightforward. Once we get that all pinned down and ready to go, we're going to sew around just like we did the last time. Remember, it's easiest if you sew with the zipper piece closest towards the top of the sewing machine. Once all of your pins are pulled out, you need to make sure that your zipper is unzipped part of the way. It'll be easiest if you have it unzipped about halfway so that there's a hole for us to turn this right side out. And then we're going to grab this piece with the handle. Now this piece fits in the square that's the opening on the bottom. So start pinning this in place by matching up the corners to the seams as they come off of that arched piece. So each corner of this handle piece will match up with a corner that's formed by one of these seams. Simply work your way around, matching up these corner pieces, pulling tight, and pinning in place. Now, when we head to the sewing machine, we are going to sew around all of these 4 edges. Make sure that the bag part and the zipper is faced up because this will be the easiest way to do it, and start right at one of those corners at a side seam. Reverse stitch and stitch all the way across until you get to the next side seam. Make sure you're not accidentally catching a fold of the zipper piece, but then you're going to put your sewing machine needle down, lift up your presser foot, and kind of roll this over and fold it so that now you are going down the short edge of that square piece with the handle on it. Once you get to the edge, put your presser foot up, make sure your needle's down, and fold around again. One last time, getting to the last seam, putting the needle down, pulling the presser foot up, and just pivoting this around like so. Once you get to the last seam, that is where you started, you can just reverse stitch on this side. No need to go around that corner. Now, once the pins are pulled out, your bag is finished. Simply reach into the hole that we left in the zipper, grab your handle, and you can pull this right side out. And you've just made an awesome zipper pouch. You can put shoes or actually probably anything in here. And it's super cute.